Hey guys, time for another Bloodborne boss ranking, and today I will give you my personal worst to best list. Keep in mind though that this is my personal opinion, and so some bosses you love I might hate, and vice versa. At number 22, and the worst boss in Bloodborne, we have the Celestial Emissary. Making this list was extremely hard, but choosing the worst boss in the game was incredibly easy. Celestial Emissary are just a bunch of normal enemies with a health bar, they have the worst soundtrack in the entire game, and they pose close to zero challenge. A pretty arena and a mini plot twist of you not doing damage at the start of the fight, and the real boss showing himself midway through the fight don't save this boss from being just a bump in the road to get to the real boss of Upper Cathedral Ward, Ebritas. In number 21 we have the Witches of Emwick, which also like Celestial Emissary have their own gimmick, but in my opinion is at least a little bit more fun to figure out what you need to do. Even though they are also very easy, if they hit you with the AoE attack, it is very possible that you might die. Even though I'm placing them very low on this list, I think a simple change as making the normal enemies more aggressive would do wonders for this fight, since the arena and the soundtrack are already pretty enjoyable. Putting one Reborn at number 20 is something that kinda makes me feel bad, because this boss is great in many things. The fight starts right away with an incredible cutscene that will stay in your memory forever, the music starts playing and it's also pretty amazing, same as the cool looking arena. Where this boss fails is the fight itself, because everything else is actually great. As we start fighting him, we realize that besides the boss we are also getting fire thrown at us from above, so it's up to us to find a way to go up and get rid of the witches. This isn't so bad, and we even get some items along the way. The problem comes from getting close to the actual boss. Leg kicks that feel completely random and too fast to react, bodies falling from the sky doing absurd damage, one Reborn throwing up the entire arena is just not a fun fight at all. Things get even worse when you realize about the limb break mechanic and the boss stops posing any kind of challenge, since it is possible to continuously make him fall and never have to deal with any attack. At number 19 we have Dark Beast Parl, which is a boss you can find very early or very late into the game. Sadly for me, I found him way too early, and to this day I think it's the only boss outside of Elden Ring bosses where I simply quit to come back much later into the game, since he felt impossible. Dark Beast Parl is one of the coolest looking bosses in the game, has an amazing soundtrack, and I love the lightning effects. However, the arena is kinda boring, and it's another boss that by using the limb break mechanics can be taken down in 30 seconds if you come to face him late into the game. This is also a boss that has some attacks so fast that are close to being unreactable, and if you fail to dodge his massive AoE, get ready to lose your entire health. At number 18 we have what is to many people the worst boss in Bloodborne, and even one of the worst in the entire series. I personally could not disagree more, but I won't justify myself here because I'm thinking of doing a video where I will give my entire thoughts on this fight, because I don't think he deserves all the hate and I want to give him a little bit of praise. So sorry guys, but my opinions on Mikolash will have to wait. As for number 17, I went with the Moon Presence. The Moon Presence is a secret boss that you can only fight if you have consumed 3 umbilical cords before fighting Gehrman. As you defeat Gehrman, you have what is to me one of the most incredible cutscenes in any of the 7 games, as Moon Presence descends from the skies to kick your ass. And this is where the problem starts, because for a final boss, Moon Presence is just too easy. With a few changes, I really think this boss had potential to be much more loved by everyone, since besides the incredible cutscene, it also has a banger soundtrack, and it shares with Gehrman one of the best arenas in the series. Something as simple as giving her more health, make her recover faster from the 1 HP attack, and also make her always do the attack where you can't use healing items would do wonders for this fight. At number 16, it pains me so much to give this place to Mergo's Wet Nurse. She is the first final boss in the game, and like the Moon Presence, she also suffers from the problem of being too easy, which is a massive disappointment. All you need to do to beat her is running behind her, and every time she moves, just run behind her again, and this fight will be a joke. Even though she has a really cool attack where she takes us into a nightmare phase where she clones herself, once you realize it's possible to dodge it, you will never have to deal with it again. Not gonna lie though, it feels really cool to dodge it. Which is also cool is the arena, the cutscene, the beautiful music, and her visual design, which only amplifies the fact that it's simply sad that this is not a very fun fight or poses any kind of challenge. I like Mergo's Wet Nurse, but the disappointment of her being the final boss is just too great. In number 15 I decided to go with Amygdala. While most bosses in Bloodborne almost force you to be aggressive, Amygdala is more of a waiting game, since attacking her feet is useless and damaging the head is the way to go. Seeing her for the first time was quite an unforgettable moment because we spent a big chunk of the game thinking if we will ever fight one of these monstrosities that we have seen in some of Bloodborne areas. She has 3 phases, in which the phase transition from second to third phase will blow your mind as she rips her arms, and now she can almost hit you anywhere in the arena. Amygdala is not a very hard boss, but if you face her in the Chalice dungeons, prepare yourself to cry in a corner. At number 14 we have another boss that everyone hates, Rom the Vacuous Spider. The first thing I will say about this boss is that the first time I found her, it was one of the coolest moments in the game. The fact that you have to jump to the lake under the beautiful moon is the coolest way to enter a fight in the entire game. As we reach the bottom, we see what is easily one of the most beautiful arenas in the game, and at the distance we see a very special spider with her 30 babies to take us down. Rom looks very cool, and so does her mini versions, which are actually more dangerous than Rom itself. Even though it's a boss I actually like, I understand the hate, since killing 30 spiders before the actual fight can be quite a chore. I like this fight because of the gorgeous arena, the very atmospherical song playing, and I honestly love killing the little spiders and the stress of knowing that one wrong move and they can actually kill you in one attack. Rom on its own doesn't have many attacks, but you still have to pay much attention to what attack is coming because she deals massive damage. I also like that there is a speedrun strategy where you can actually kill her in first phase right away. In the end, I understand the hate Rom gets, but to me she's like a guilty pleasure. At number 13 we have what was my first boss ever in any Souls game, the Cleric Beast. As I cross the bridge, I see this giant monster jumping from the skies, screaming. One of the best songs in the entire game starts playing, and I'm already in love with this boss. After 25 deaths, I finally beat him, and I felt for the first time the rush all of us feel every time we beat a boss. In 7 games and hundreds of bosses later, I still continue feeling that same rush every time I beat a tough boss. Cleric Beast is one of 2 tutorial bosses in Yharnam, and it does its job beautifully. In future playthroughs it becomes of course a walk in the park, but I will never forget that this was my first boss ever and the feeling of beating him for the first time. At number 12 we have what I believe is the most underrated boss in the game. And with this, I'm not saying Living Failures is an amazing boss, but it sure isn't one of the worst in the game. I feel like it just became a meme saying they are bad due to everything in the DLC just being so much superior and of course their funny name. Living Failures have an incredible arena, one of the best soundtracks in the entire game, and they made a fight against 4 enemies actually work. They aren't very hard on a normal run, but they still do massive damage, and if you don't take them seriously, it's very easy to die. In fact, I saw many famous streamers die more to them than to Orphan of Cause, and I personally also die more to them than I did to Orphan of Cause. I also have to mention that their meteor attack in second phase is a beauty to behold. Living Failures are a very decent boss, but their name and location in the game made them a very easy target. Just missing the top 10 we have Vicar Amelia, and this is a boss which has tons of ups and downs. On the good side, Amelia has a very cool cutscene, the same amazing song as Cleric Beast. I like her visual design, she has a spectacular moveset, and if you're into crazy challenges due to her healing properties, doing something like fists only against her might just break you. Sadly, like many bosses before in this list, Amelia suffers from the limb break mechanics, making her a complete joke as soon as you know what to do. By breaking her legs and arms, and also doing visceral attacks, you will beat Vicar Amelia in 30 seconds, and she won't even do a single attack, which is a pity since I think she's a really cool boss to fight. At number 10 we have Martyr Logarius, which is already a very high quality boss. Before I praise this boss though, I have to say that if Sony ever make a remaster of this game, please put a lamp right next to Logarius Arena, because this runback is just absurd. Logarius gets up from his chair in the cutscene and starts the fight, mostly moving slow and using magic, and it seems like a very simple fight, but when it enters second phase, all hell breaks loose. He moves crazy fast, has a ton of different attacks, puts a sword on the floor which will make a tons of swords fly all over the arena, unless you shoot it of course, and he flies everywhere with his massive scythe. His difficulty will depend a lot from when you come visit Cainhurst, but even at a high level, I do think he is one of the most challenging bosses in the game, and one I haven't yet mastered. Logarius is simply one of the coolest bosses in Bloodborne, and most people would probably even rank him higher. At number 9 I have the Shadows of Yharnam, which seems to be a boss that most people either love or hate. I am with the people that love this boss because to me Shadows is one of the few gank bosses that actually works really well. Each of the shadows works in a different way, and it's a boss that you need to pay attention to everything surrounding you, because the arena can also be a big part of the fight, since you can use the giant tomb to cover from some of their attacks. At a certain point of the fight, the shadows' heads will explode and snakes will emerge, and the fight gets even harder, as they now can stretch their arms to hit you even if you're very far away. The fight gets another twist when you are facing just one of them, and if you don't attack fast, gigantic snakes will be summoned, and there is a big chance you might die, since this is one of the hardest attacks to deal in the entire game. Shadows of Yharnam is a very fast-paced fight that will definitely test your skill. At number 8, I have the Bloodstar Beast, and I bet people will say right away, Bloodstar Beast over Lagarius, you are crazy. And I understand you, but the thing is that this boss is very special for me, since it was the boss that killed me the most in the main game and almost made me quit the game. I can't remember which boss in the entire series made me go more crazy with emotions after beating it, but Bloodstar Beast is surely up there with the best. An awesome entrance to the boss arena, the vision of her disgusting design with the skin hanging, and what is to me the most stress-inducing music of all time, plus of course the not so slow poisoning, made this fight seem like it was capable of giving me a heart attack. I also love the crazy scary screams she makes, and it's also my personal scariest boss to parry. This boss completely broke me mentally, but it was an experience I will never forget. At number 7 I have Lawrence the First Vicar. Now, Lawrence is for me one of the hardest bosses to rank in this list, because even though this is the boss I fought more times in the entire game, I sadly haven't yet mastered this fight. It's also a boss that I used to hate because my first playthrough was on New Game Plus, and I have never seen a boss perform so much damage like Lawrence, because many of his attacks will remove your entire health bar, forcing me to do that awful run back for 150 times. In Blood level 4, things got even worse in difficulty, but the fight started clicking for me, and to this day I still maintain the idea that Lawrence is the boss with more random combinations in all of Souls. Lawrence is also the boss that has my favorite soundtrack, not just in Bloodborne, but in any game ever. To finish, I would like to say that I've seen much better players than me fight Lawrence, and it was an incredible fight to watch. Lawrence has the potential to go higher on this list one day, but for now it stays at number 7. At number 6 we have Ebritus, which is a boss probably many people never found because it is hidden in a secret room that is very easy to miss. Thanks to the power of YouTube though, I found my way to her and faced what is for me one of the best bosses in Bloodborne and also the hardest in the main game. Ebritus hits like a truck and has a charge attack that will make you want to break your control in despair. In second phase, things get even worse as you will get damage just from getting close to her, and she adds another crazy charge and the infamous Call from Beyond move. To all the people that fight her going behind her back and think she's easy, I beg you to give her another try and this time face her face to face, because you are really missing out a phenomenal boss. At number 5, and this is a placement that will probably not please many people, but I have Lady Maria. Lady Maria is a boss that is already cool before the fight even begins, since the level where we find her is all about telling her story. Another plus is the fact that it has the shortest run back in the game, a beautiful arena, an incredible soundtrack, and 3 awesome phases for an amazing dance. Lady Maria, however, has something I wish it was changed, and that is how easily she can be staggered. Even with something as simple as a sock lever, you will simply melt her health bar by simply pressing R1. Things get better in her final 2 phases though, because she adds a good amount of moves to the fight, and also her hitboxes are off the charts, so every dodge you make will have to be perfect. Maria is a boss that is very close to perfection, and I can easily see why people love her so much. At number 4 we have the first hunter himself, Gehrman. After talking about how disappointing the other 2 final bosses were, I am very happy to say that Gehrman is an incredible way to finish the game. Things, however, started in a bad way for me because I got spoiled, so I always knew Gehrman was going to be the final boss, which stopped me from having witnessed what is one of the best twists in the entire series. His cutscene is iconic as we witness Gehrman getting up from his chair and saying the line,
"Tonight, Gehrman joins the hunt."
As for the fight itself, it is done in one of my favorite areas in the series, in a beautiful place filled with flowers, with a gorgeous full moon in the background, and also everything around burning. Gehrman's difficulty will heavily depend on your parrying skills, but will be, almost without a doubt, a much harder challenge than Moon Presence or Marigo's Wet Nurse. Even though I love this fight to infinity, there are 2 things I would definitely change. First, I think this blunderbuss should do way more damage, and his final phase where he never staggers again should come sooner. Even though German is limping, he's easily one of the fastest fights in the game and also one of its best. At number 3 we have the man of many names, Father Gasoline. Father G is our first mandatory boss in Bloodborne and he doesn't mess around. After an awesome cutscene, Father Gaston wastes no time chasing you around the arena to put you down. Once you damage him enough, he will go into his second phase where he will extend his weapon for higher reach, and to finish it off, we have one of the most badass moments in the game as he transforms into a werewolf and destroys everything in his path, including you. Father Guacamole also has one of the best soundtracks in the series, and it's also one of the few bosses I actually cared to learn about the lore, which is incredibly sad. In the future I will be doing a which is the best tutorials boss in Souls video, and you can bet Father Calzone will be ranked very highly. And at number 2, and probably to many people's surprise, is Orphan of Kos. Now I say this of course due to the name of my channel, which would make anyone automatically think he is my favorite. Well, it's close, but Ludwig is just too good. Orphan of Kos is a very important boss to me because I knew about the fame of his legendary difficulty, and when I beat him third try, I simply could not believe it. Luckily I did a save file, and on our second meeting I understood that all I had was nothing but luck, because this time it took me 50 tries to beat him. Orphan of Kos to me is a boss that excels at almost everything with just a few minor problems. Things I'm not a big fan on Orphan are those little trees in the arena that had nothing to the fight but getting in the way. I'm also not a big fan of when Orphan just decides to cancel his attacks and starts something else, catching you completely off guard. Even though I know some of this is triggered by how far or how close you are from the boss, it's still something I would prefer not to exist. As for good things though, it starts right away before you even begin the fight. Right at the entrance we have these crazy looking creatures on their knees praying to Kos, and when the cutscene begins, we have one of the most disturbing cutscenes ever as we watch Orphan come to life from his dead mother on a beach. Lovely. He starts to cry and moves into our direction at a very slow pace, and all we can think is, what the hell is that? The slow walk is quickly altered with crazy fast attacks because this is one angry baby that even first phase can put quite of a fight. Second phase, however, is where the spectacle comes, when the music explodes and Orphan gets his wings and chases you non-stop in what is one of the most exciting fights in any game ever. Orphan of Kos is a masterpiece of challenge, stress, music, atmosphere, build-up and many more things, but there's still one boss that does everything better, and that boss is of course the one and only Ludwig. This is a boss that I don't need to talk much into detail because making a summary of Ludwig is very simple. 2 of the best cutscenes ever, check. 1 of the best soundtracks ever, check. Best boss visual design ever, check. 2 phenomenal phases so different from one another that is like fighting 2 10 out of 10 bosses, check. The list just keeps going on and on because again Ludwig excels at everything. He is one of the best bosses in gaming, therefore the best in Bloodborne. A masterpiece like no other, Ludwig is king. That's it for this list guys, I hope you enjoyed watching and I see you guys on the next video, bye bye.